Welcome to another episode. And before I start introducing our guests, I would like to inform you that I have decided to change my channel and podcast name from Bright Blue Star to Sosho English, as I have the same name, Sosho, for my Arabic viewers. Um, Ethics is fundamental to human beings, and we cannot escape from doing ethics at all. Let us assume that somebody else decided to do no ethical judgment whatsoever in order to avoid all kinds of moral theories and all the social related issues. However, that in itself is a moral theory, and having an apathetic point of view of challenging ethical issues is a moral judgment in itself. Now, some German idealist philosophers, such as Immanuel Kant and Hegel, argued that the metaphysics of morality leads to God. In contrast, utilitarianism and its leading figures like Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and the Australian philosopher Peter Singer argue that utility itself can be ethical and thus remove God from the equation, even though they didn't say the last part explicitly, as far as I know. Today, we will discuss some issues and questions with Professor Don Dean, a 50 years member of the SGI Buddhist organization that seeks global peace and love. Also, we have with us Professor Bruce McGraw, the author of The Magical Universe, newmythology.com. Welcome, professors, to our show today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me start with Don with this question. Is it wrong to say that morality comes from God? Why the divine command theory is problematic? Why you reject or accept such a point of view? Yes.
Well, so is it wrong to say that morality comes from God? I don't necessarily think that that's a wrong statement.
Okay.
Because it all depends on what you consider God to be. So is God a being that's separate from us, or is God something that is a part of our own lives?
Yeah.
And so from the Buddhist standpoint, we don't actually separate God and man. We say that every human being has the potential to be God-like from the standpoint of becoming a person of compassion. And so if you interpret God to be a being that is compassionate and caring, and that part of us, that the better part of us, then definitely it's not something that is wrong to say. It just again, it just depends on how God is defined.
Yeah. So your answer is there. I will try to guess what you said here again, that you are saying that there is no right or wrong to this question, like yes or no.
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just it's more of what your definition of God is. But from the Buddhist standpoint, we don't separate human beings and this ultimate life condition that many people call God, and from our viewpoint, God is compassion, and compassion is something that is all pervasive throughout the universe.
Well, let me go to Bruce. So, yeah, what do you think, Bruce? Go ahead.
I think Don brought up a good point. I think the real issue here is that how do you define God?
Okay.
And so that's the big question, because so many people have different ideas about what God is. I think the Buddhist idea of God is different than maybe a lot of Christians or Muslims or Jews have an idea of God. The divine command theory is an interesting theory, and it just kind of helps maybe flesh out a little bit. That was, I think, the expression of it. Socrates brought it up in his dialogue, the Euthyphro, when he said, "Is something good because God commanded it, or did God command it because, in a sense, it was already good?"
Yes.
So the first one is it good because God commanded it? Basically, the divine command theory, which says whatever God commands is good.
Yes.
And so that's kind of a relativism, because it sort of means good is dependent on whatever the whim of the moment of God is. So he can will whatever he wants because he's God, and it becomes good. So if God says, you know what, it's okay to kill, we have the law, thou shalt not kill, but God, because he's God, could say, you know what, I'm going to change it. I'm going to say on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, it's okay to kill. And on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays, it's wrong to kill. And on Sunday, you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
I mean, it's sort of a relativism based on God. The other one of that said, did God command it because it was already good, means that even God has to follow certain standards. Now, it could be those standards that God created himself, but when God creates the world and standards, God has to follow those standards. He can't violate those standards. So under that idea, he couldn't go along and say, well, it's okay to kill on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because he got these standards he has to follow.
Yes.
And so that's kind of a natural law theory that I think goes a little bit along with what Don was saying, that there is this kind of moral essence to the universe that we have to follow. Now, if you call that moral essence of the universe God, then you'd say, okay, then maybe that works that way. But if it's the divine command theory, to me, gives this idea of there's a God sitting outside who's giving you these laws and telling you to do these things. And I think that's the problem people have with religion, because they have that kind of a view of God.
Yes. So, let me go to Don again. So, Don, I think, like your point of view or your Buddhist philosophy is more of like discovering God from the human being himself. So, unlike Christianity or, all the three Abrahamic religions, they have a book, they go to the book, they go to the history, they go all the way thousands of years ago. But what you are saying here is that even if we believe in God, we can discover God within ourselves. So all the good nature we have in ourselves, that God itself. And I think that is different from the Abrahamic point of view. What do you think?
Even though I went to 12 years of Catholic school and spent a good portion of my early life studying that. I don't feel qualified to define the Abrahamic view, and so the only thing that I know is that when I was in Catholic school, they told us over and over that actually God is within us, and you as a human being can manifest that God part of you through the good acts that you do.
Yes.
or with others.
Yeah, but kind of like, for example, despite the fact that they tell you that, but
Yeah.
they still have a Bible where it says that the homosexual is immoral, or women, for example, are caused all the bad things in human history, the first sin, and I mean they can interpret the book, and all these are commands, of course. I mean, or like in Islam, like where Islam says that uh, people love women and money, and I said, well, women are people, so why you exclude women from people? Like people love women and money, for example. But that's why I'm saying that for me it seems like a problem, because we always go to a text.
So one of the things I need to hearken back to
Yes.
is that the person I consider my mentor, Daisaku Ikeda,
Yes.
he made a lot of pronouncements about the topic of religion and its purpose in society. And in 1996, he had an opportunity to give a speech at the Jewish Community Center in Los Angeles when he was in LA. And at that point, he said that the primary mission of religion is to forge individuals who are capable of creative responses to life's challenges while leading contributive lives. And then he said that there is no greater good than empowering humanity and revitalizing society. And he says, like politics, economics, and education, religion is devoid of meaning unless it contributes to this process. And so, it comes down to what do individuals think of when they think of religion? What does each individual consider religion to be? And in my practice, I've come to really understand that religion's real purpose is to help people, not for people to serve religion, but religion to serve human beings and help them become better human beings.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, Ross.
I'm not, I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Yeah, you did answer, and
yeah.
but I like to go to Bruce also to ask him, do you think that we can be ethical beings and without having the terms like good or evil? Because as you know, religion uses a lot the word good and evil. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think you have to have terms of good and evil, at least good,
Okay.
to have values, because you have to have, if you're going to have values, you have to have, good behavior, I guess, and then you have to have bad behavior or evil behavior.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to have values, otherwise you just have a relativism, and it's sort of in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing, though, is you have to really define what good and evil is. And so some people, if you talk about like, what is evil?
Yes.
And, and now Thomas Aquinas, he claimed that evil doesn't really exist. Only good exists. Evil doesn't really exist. Evil is just the lack of the good.
Yes.
So in the same way that, dark is lack of the light. So nobody ever says, turn on the dark.
Yes.
They say, turn off the light.
Yes.
In the same way, cold is the absence of heat. There's just the only force there is heat. And as you get farther away from the heat, you get colder. And so the idea here, according to Aquinas, is the farther away you get from the good, however you want to define that, good behavior and, in a universal sense, the more evil you get. But evil itself is not a thing in itself. Socrates had the same kind of ideas, but he said, evil's a lack of something, but he said it was a lack of wisdom. And so he equated virtue and wisdom, and he said evil was ignorance. And so evil was just, nobody's really evil. There's no evil people. There's just ignorant people who don't understand what's really in their own best interest. They might think immediate gain, like stealing or killing somebody, would give them some immediate benefit. And maybe it will give an immediate benefit, but in the long run, it's not going to be beneficial for them to do that. And so they commit this evil, not so much because they are evil, but just because they're ignorant of what's really in their best interest. So it's an interesting way to look at it, that there really is only good, and evil is just when we get too far away from the good, we fall into evil. So, but I think you need some idea of the good, I think, to have morality at least.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. I love that explanation, Bruce. Thank you.
Yeah, but okay, let me think about this a little bit. So, for example, and when I used to be a religious person, I used, for example, to judge even criminals. For example, somebody committed a horrendous crime. I would say, like, that person deserves all kind of revengeful punishment because he had done such a thing. But then when I started becoming scientific thinker and examining everything, I discovered that many people do many things and they don't even, like, barely are aware of it. I mean, because I doubt sometimes that some people, like, you see somebody else kill his own children, and I think that, well, that seems even like unnatural, yet it's happening. So is it possible that a person sometimes is so disconnected with reality that they do stuff that looks evil, but they are not responsible of them? What do you think about that, Russ? And I then go to Don. Okay.
Well, I think you make my point, and the idea is that the evil is you are so disconnected from the good that you do these kind of things. Socrates would say, at the moment you killed your children, at that moment when you did that, something made you do it because you thought it was in your best interest. Maybe you were just so angry that you had to lash out at somebody, but there was some reason in your head. You may regret it later, but at that moment, it was what you felt you needed to do for some reason. Maybe later you regret it and wish you hadn't done it. But I think your point that you become so disconnected means and this doesn't mean you don't get punished. I mean, this is not excusing people who kill people like that. They need to be punished, but it's just giving a different definition for evil. But I think your point actually ties in pretty well with that, with the definitions I was giving.
Yes. Okay, Don, what do you think?
Yeah, so if I can bring it back a little bit to science. So we're, part of our discussion today is supposed to be on science and morality, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so the person that founded the form of Buddhism that I practice, Nichiren Daishonin, he wrote an important what they call treatise called Establishing the Peace of the Land, and in establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land is actually the full title of it.
Yes.
So in there, he talks about in order to have a harmonious existence, in order to have a truly happy existence where there is harmony between humans and the land, is that we have to recognize the fact that the poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness are the things that create problems, and that as they gradually intensify, that the lifespan of human beings gradually decreases. And this became the basis for a dialogue that Daisaku Ikeda had with Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker, and he was the head of the Club of Rome. I'm not sure if he is that now, but he is a famous scientist throughout the world, and biological scientists. And they were having a discussion about pollution, so that the true cause of pollution. And so he was bringing up this writing by Nietzsche Daishonin that greed, anger, and foolishness are the things that cause many of our problems today. And then he said that they gave the example of environmental pollution is the result of our relentless pursuit of convenience and affluence. And that's blinded us to the principle that we are part of nature and that we need to live in harmony with it. And that the advancement of modern civilization based on science has exacerbated and amplified the greed for possessions and dominance inherent in human beings until they are on the verge of destroying their natural environment and threatening life itself. And so, but what he was trying to point out is not that science is bad in any way. It's not actually, science is neither bad nor good. Yeah. And so, this goes back to what, Bruce was saying earlier, that, good is, evil is the absence of good.
Yes.
And so, science in itself is neither bad nor good. But it depends on, the level of greed, anger, and foolishness that, people have that blinds them to being able to utilize things in the best possible way to help other human beings. And so he goes on to say that to prevent further environmental destruction, and you could also apply this to the the COVID pandemic as well. It's important to have accurate information regarding the actual severity of the threat, and the threat constantly presented to the public, and to take necessary measures, legal and policy measures, to deal with that problem. And that he said that not only experts in the field, but the general public must consistently be on the alert and monitoring the actions taken by government and business. And so if people are blinded by these poisons of greed, anger, and foolishness, they're not able to do that. And then, as a result, we all suffer for that.
Yes, thank you, Ross. Okay, you think I'm not sure if, but I think that you believe that we can use religion sometimes for good or bad. But what do you think if I say that if you go and study every, for example, ethnical struggles, wars, hate, massacres, you will find behind the ethnic racist speech a kind of religious background. Like, for example, in Ireland, the Protestant versus the Catholics, in former Yugoslavia, Catholics and Orthodox and Muslims, and also in Iraq, Sunni versus Shia, in India, Hindu versus Muslim. Everywhere you go, you find a religion like giving some sort of support or feed the hate and the struggle. So how you analyze this issue? What do you think about it?
Well, again, I think, religion, you have to look at how you're talking about religion. And, I go back to, again, when we go back to kind of Socrates' idea that evil is ignorance and virtue is wisdom. Yeah. Obviously, there's going to be people who go by religion and many different religions. who divide the religion off, and they think my religion is the best and everybody else's religion is terrible. In fact, maybe they're even from the devil or something, and so you're going to have that. And I think that's a kind of ignorant thinking.
Yes.
So I think just because there's people who call themselves religion and do these terrible things doesn't necessarily ruin religion itself. And that's why I think people use the word spirituality, because religion is such a loaded term now.
Okay.
And so I look at it, individuals are made up of two selves. We have the little s self, which is the ego. And if we're coming from our ego, we're automatically divided, separate from everything else. But we have this big S self, which I call like the God self. I know in Hinduism, it's called the Atman Brahman, when your self, your deepest self, combines with the ultimate reality. That's your higher self. And your higher self is always interconnected with everything. I mean, in a sense, you could say it's God. I think maybe it's your God self, it's your true self, it's your higher self. Yes. And when people are coming from that, that's a higher level of religion and spirituality. And that's where I think the Buddha came from and Jesus came from and a lot of our great wisdom teachers came from. But people are coming from their little s self, their egos, they get caught up in these little sectarian wars and think their religion's better than everybody else's. In fact, they want to go to war to make sure that everybody converts to their religion.
Yes.
So I just think it's more of the individual, not the religion, and we have to be careful how we throw around terms without defining them. So
yeah, but don't you think that, for example, one of the phenomenon of religion is that it feeds, for example, the cult of herds? Like people stop usually thinking of themselves as individuals, and they start thinking as a group more. So don't you think that this is a kind of problematic?
Yeah, I mean, it can lead to that, no doubt. But other things can do it too. Your race, right now we hear about white supremacy. So people get so identified with their race that they think, it cuts them off from everybody else. Or
but that also is supported by some churches. I mean, they feed that.
I know, it's a danger.
Yeah.
It's a danger. It's always a danger that human beings, I'm just going to say, are more ignorant, more cut off.
Yes.
I mean, that's a danger of religion. You're right. And it's something to definitely be aware of. So, I mean, it kind of comes with the territory that, you're going to have these different people at different levels of spiritual development. And one person said, there's not just one Jesus Christ. There's like 20 or 30 or 40, because everybody, depending on their level of development, has a different image of who and what Jesus was.
Yes.
So, it's the human condition. I think you have to be aware of that, but I don't think you necessarily have to condemn all of religion just because some people have taken it to crazy ends.
Yeah. I respect their opinion, even though I see it from an atheistic point of view, more like Christopher Hitchens did. I mean, I'm that kind of person. But also, I noticed that Sam Harris also is right about when he criticizes some atheistic point of view where they go almost to nihilism. Yeah, that I almost believe in nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, they asked Sam Harris. Sam Harris doesn't believe in the kind of the Christian God out there, but I think if I remember, somebody asked him, like the Buddhist concept of God or the Buddhist concept of ultimate being. I'm not quite sure the Buddha nature, however the Buddhists frame it. And I thought he was open to that. He says, well, maybe there's something to that. So again, it's like, how do you define these terms?
Yes.
Yeah. We do get hung up on terms. And so, I mean, one way of defining Buddha nature is that it is our greater self, not our lesser self.
Yes.
Yeah, but as far as like what you were both talking about religion and how you define it, it is different for different people. But again, going back to that speech that Daisaku Ikeda gave at the Jewish Community Center in 1996, he said that when religion dominates and oppresses people, it becomes an instrument of authority. And he said that history is filled with examples of people who wanted only to be happy and being deceived by clergy or other religious leaders. And he said that this is an undeniable reality. And this is the kind of thing that does create that kind of nihilism that Bruce was referring to. And then he said that we have to keep in mind that life is equally precious and sacrosanct for all people. And it is a mistake to think that priests stand above lay believers. And it's more important, and that no leader of any religion is more important than the members in that religion. And he said that if once people start thinking that way, they start thinking that the leader of a religion or the leader of a group of people, a religious group, is greater than the members of that group. He said that that is betraying the true purpose of religion.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, let me move to another important question. I mean, which is, I know, like, can science decide for us or help us to recognize what is good or bad for humanity? Or, for example, ethical relativism is still challenging because it uses science against the scientific judgment of other cultures. So do you think that we can judge culture that allows, for example, murdering girls for charges of immorality? Or like, for as recently a Jordanian guy beheaded his own daughter and then started smoking and drinking tea over her dead body. So, I mean, that's very awful. And yet those who believe in relativism want us to respect that difference in culture. So what do you think, Don? Okay, let me go with Don first.
Yeah, so that's, getting back again to what I was saying about respect for human life, that actually should be the most important goal of any philosophy, any teaching. And I think it's true of all religion, that
Yes.
even though people may not practice that religion in that way, but at almost every religion's core is this respect for human life and the sanctity of human life, and that anything that you do to go against the sanctity of human life is something that is wrong, is ultimately immoral. And so I can't really, I don't want to comment on this particular incident, except to say that whenever you kill another person for whatever reason, it's almost always because there's been a breakdown. There's been some kind of a breakdown. And the breakdown is usually in the area of dialogue, and that people are not able to have a discussion. They're not able to convey their points of view to each other. And so and when people are not able to do that, and they're blinded to the suffering that another person's going through, then that's when people feel that it's okay to kill other people to justify whatever that end justifies that means justifies their end, you could say.
Yes. Okay, Ross.
Yeah. And so you want to talk a little bit about the role of science in ethics too? Is that?
Yeah, like, can science make us ethical beings? Can we, learn without religion? Like if you depend solely on science, can you benefit from it to become an ethical person?
Yeah, you know, I part of my book that I wrote was the Magical Universe, and then the other one's a new mythology.
Yes.
Kind of what it's trying to overcome is this split that we've had since the Middle Ages, between science and religion. I mean, before that, in the Middle Ages and past, what they had for science and religion were all one, and then it got split in the Renaissance, the modern age, and it's still kind of split. And I think the new paradigm is going to bring them together. And so I don't think it's like an either or thing. I think religion or spirit, I'll call it spirituality and science, are coming back together. And I think, and for me, in my view, science played a role, maybe not a direct role, but what science told us was it gave us the theory of evolution. Gave us the Big Bang. We learned about the Big Bang. I mean, that's something the Buddha didn't know about. Jesus, nobody knew about this. Nobody knew the universe was 13.8 billion years old. So science gave us that. So we're part of this evolutionary process. Now, the problem with the modern view of science is they think evolution just means you change from one thing to another. But what I think they're missing from the modern view is that it's not just changes going on in this evolutionary thing, there's development that goes on. So we've gone from this void where we have minor, tiny little subatomic particles up to the creation of human beings. Now, modern science sort of wants to say it's all random and accidental, that we just went from there to human beings. That's a little hard for me to swallow. It seems to me that at some level, universe has an intention and an intelligence, and it's actually going somewhere. I mean, it seems to have almost, I don't want to say a plan, but it seems to be going somewhere. And so if you look at it that way, and then, you know, it's continually developed, it's developed to us. So then you look at, well, what is the role of human beings in this thing? And the thing is, the evolution's still going. So human beings have to continue to evolve. And it's not so much physical evolution anymore, but it's spiritual and consciousness evolution. Yeah. And so I would say, if you look at it that way, then what is good is what sort of helps the universe evolve forward. And coincidentally, that helps us to evolve forward. So the more we realize who we are and do what we're supposed to do and actualize all our potentials, become the person we're meant to be, we are furthering the universe's evolutionary goals. So the universe and our purposes are in harmony. And so whatever we do that helps that along, I would say that would be good. And whatever we do that retards that and blocks that, that would be bad. Yes. So in that sense, I would say, you know, good science can give us, at least indirectly, I think a new moral value system. And I think through what I've done here is it's a blending of science and spirituality, that they can feed each other. We don't have to have this either or, you know, where we go, well, do you want a God relativism where God can sort of command whatever he wants, or you can have an ethical relativism which sort of says human beings can do whatever they want because there's no universal value out there. Yes. So I think they both fall into the same rut in the end, and so you have to combine the two and go beyond them. You know, it's a new Hegelian synthesis.
Well, one of the reasons why I see religion as futile or useless, as I say, is that even religion, when it becomes ethical and it supports human rights, it comes at the last moment. I mean, after science breaks everything and we discover new stuff, and then we break through and discover, for example, that animals also have feelings and they feel sad, they cry, they have all the some of the basic human moralities, so, or ethics, even animals. But religion is silent on that side. And only then we discover some priest or mullahs or whatever, they will come out and say, oh, okay, we support that. Come on, guys, that's too late. So that's why I think that science is very important, or is more essential, I think. I mean, if science is able to take all the aspects of life from religion, why stop in morality? I mean, okay, Don, what do you think about that? I mean, why stop with morality? If science is able to take, for example, the legal systems, or many aspects of life, science come over it. Why stop with ethics?
Yeah. So, so getting back to whether science can lead to morality and vice versa. I think Einstein had that famous saying that I think it goes science without religion without science is um, blind, and science without religion is lame, or something along that line, right? I'm trying to remember the exact quote, but he felt that science and religion went hand in hand, and ultimately he felt that scientists without any kind of moral guidance, without any kind of sense of morality, um, would the result of their science without that sense of fundamental human decency would not be have a good result. And so I think one of the books you're reading, you're reading a dialogue between President Ikeda, Takasaku Ikeda, and Joseph Rotblat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so he was talking about that dialogue, and he said that Dr. Rotblat, who was worked on the Manhattan Project, but left it when he realized that it no longer would be serving the good of humanity.
Yes.
He said that the world's scientists can make a definitive statement about the application of scientific knowledge in society because they have had such an immense impact on people's lives, and they've played a major role in shaping contemporary society.
Yes.
And and then he went on to talk more about a dialogue that they have with Linus Pauling, and Linus Pauling, who is one of the discoverers of DNA.
Yes.
He said that since I believe in democracy, I prefer to see no single group, not even scientists, running the world. And he said scientists have an obligation to help their fellow citizens understand what the problems are, but must not form a controlling oligarchy.
Yes.
Decisions must be made by the people as a whole. And so it's important for scientists to work with a civil society to build a healthy society, not science for science sake.
Yes. So science for humanity, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah, not with the Nazi doctors who did all kinds of horrible experiments, for the sake of science.
Sure. I agree on that. Okay. I mean, that's it's a very deep topic, and I love it because it's very challenging. And Bruce, I think that your theory, I mean, you already have tried to create such a theory. Like you are almost offering a new religion to people.
A new spirituality.
Yeah, okay.
All of that terminology, which
but
you kind of bring that out. So.
Okay, so you don't have priest or clergy or anything. So but the new mythology, can you make this universe with all the humans in it have an interest in the universe itself without going to divide people to, okay, this is clean person, this is unclean person, this is dirty, that blah, 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 blah. I mean, and that's why I think we need people like you here. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I think the good thing about the new mythology and tying morality, I think, to the universe story and the way I've laid it out is it is universal. I mean, we all came from that little speck, that singularity at the beginning of time. Everybody came out of it. So everybody's a part of this universe story. So it's something we can all relate to. It's not sectarian. It involves everybody. And that doesn't mean you can't have the diversity of different religious beliefs in the culture, and so that's all fine, I think. But as long as a certain level of morality is maintained, so for example, anybody can worship whatever gods they want, perform any rituals they want, and if you're an atheist, you don't have to believe in anything. It doesn't matter, just as long as you obey certain things. So if your religious practice says, our religious practice wants to sacrifice a newborn baby at the full moon, every full moon.
Yes.
That's when you step in and you go, sorry, you don't get to do that.
Yes.
You can't say free religion and I'm free to that. Say, no, that's wrong. You can't do that. As long as you don't start sacrificing innocent people or harming people in any way like that, you can do whatever you want, as long as you maintain a certain standard of behavior. And that goes for atheists too. Atheists don't have to believe, don't have to go to church, don't have to go to the mosque, don't have to go to the temple, as long as they maintain a certain standard of behavior. So you can have diversity within this overarching unified system, because I think we want the diversity of the world and the beliefs. They're all nourishing to me. I love all of them, and they feed each other to me. And so you want all that diversity. You don't want this uniformity, but I think we need a philosophy or a cosmology or whatever that unifies everybody. And it's interesting that, it's only in the modern times that we split religion and science, but before that, in pre-modern times, and indigenous people, whenever they came out with their worldview, they always started out with the universe story. If you look at the Bible, I mean, what's the first thing in Genesis? It's the creation of the universe.
Yes.
They always start out with the whole and the things that unites everybody, and then they go forward into the particulars. And so, because once you get the universe story, you kind of see how do you connect to everything, and and it gives you your sense of purpose, your sense of place in the scheme of everything. And you move forward with that. So I think we need this kind of new universe story in which to ground our morality and unite the planet. And I think right now, as Don was mentioning with climate change, if we don't change our worldview, it's going to be over. So it's not, to me, it's not even a matter of, can we convince people? It's like we're at the point where it's life or death. People are going to have to take on a new sense. They're going to have to take on a new sense of who they are and their identity. And I think the universe story is one way to help them that. I mean, I think Buddhism does that also, and other religions can do that also. But I think the universe story can tie into all of those things. I don't think it negates any of them. I think it can encompass all of it. So I think it's a unifying force.
Yes.
And gives people a sense of the whole, along with their own individual uniqueness.
Yes. So this universe is our home. So we all, right?
Well, the problem with the modern world is they just looked at it as like a bunch of dead matter out there, and so we get all focused on human beings and ourselves and me and everything else. We've lost the bigger picture that we fit into. That gives us our purpose and our sense of where we came from and where we're going.
Well, okay, Dan, also I will give you, if you want to say anything.
Yeah, so getting back to what I was talking about with Einstein. He wrote another famous letter. I think it was written 1954 or something like that. He wrote it to someone that shared a book with him, and the book was called Choose Life, the Biblical Call to Revolt. Yeah. And so it was written by Eric Gutkind. So he penned a really long letter to Eric, and talking about his views of science and science and religion. And but he, one of the things that he was mentioning in this letter was that religion was the way that earlier man, earlier humanity dealt with the universe. I mean, you know, you look up in the sky and you see that all these stars, and you see this incredible, you know, cosmos, you know, and you have to go, there's something great at work here. There's something incredible at work here. And that, you know, and they didn't have the benefit of scientific discovery back then. And so, you know, a lot of religions, you know, what they wrote were, you know, they were trying to figure that out. And then, you know, as we went along, you know, people figured things out more and more. But yeah, it seems like the more that we figure out, the more that we find that there is to know, right?
Yes.
And so it's like it's never ending, and the vastness and the unbelievable depth of, you know, what's what in the world, just it's just so astounding. It is just like incredibly astounding. I think I read it was like two or 3 days ago, for the first time they announced that they've actually seen another solar system. They've actually seen another solar system through some instruments. They've seen a star that has planets revolving around it, and it's a solar system very much like our own. And, you know, stop and think about that for a moment. You know, the way that they used to explain the world was, according to some cosmologies, that, you know, the Earth was sitting on top of a giant turtle.
Yeah.
and you know,
Yes.
so like you know, compare that, and then being able to look through this instrument and being able to see other planets revolving around the sun. It's, you know, it's like, what do you think about that? And so and the other thing is, when I was growing up, I used to read a lot of science fiction, and one of my favorite authors was Arthur C. Clarke. And he's most famous for writing 2001: A Space Odyssey. But when I was growing up, I read one of his books called The Deep Range. And this was more of a young adult's book. And in this book, The Deep Range, he talks about how human beings will eventually, you know, farm the sea, and that you know, and also come to realize that like, for instance, in the book they're talking about whales. They came to realize that whales have an incredible intelligence.
Yes.
And that and that there's more going on with whales than just being an animal. And so also in this book, The Deep Range, Arthur C. Clarke predicted that Buddhism would actually end up becoming one of the, if not the major religion in the world, you know, one of the major religions in the world, because Buddhist teaching does not contradict anything in science. In fact, science and Buddhist teaching seem to go hand in hand. And you know, this was written in the 1950s or 60s, something like that. And Arthur C. Clarke himself became a Buddhist, and he practiced a form of Buddhism. But anyways, he said that Buddhist philosophy, according to him, is the philosophy that would actually best prepare human beings to meet people from another planet, and be able to accept them, because of its teaching that all of life has value and all of life is to be respected. And so, any case, you know, I've kind of rambled on there, but you know, the point being, again, you know, getting back to, you know, what, you know, Einstein and Arthur C. Clarke and, you know, other scientists have been saying, is that learning more about science doesn't necessarily help people become more moral, but instead applying the morality that human beings deserve this utmost respect because they all have this beautiful godlike nature, and in Buddhism we call it the Buddha nature, and recognizing that every human being has this within them. If that becomes the basis of scientific discovery, then science will be used in a way that benefits mankind, not hurts mankind.
Yes. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, I remember somebody asked the Dalai Lama, he said, what if science came up with some idea that contradicted Buddhist philosophy? What would you do? And he said, if it really contradicted and was proven, we'd have to change Buddhist philosophy.
That's right, exactly. And that is the beauty of it being, it's a philosophy. It's not anything that's like set in stone. It's a way of dealing with the world around you.
Yeah. I will end this episode by just saying that Buddhism is the strongest philosophy so far I have ever seen, because it always just tells you, just look inside yourself, and that's all. I mean, it doesn't require you much. And as Sam Harris said, imagine a universe without a conscious being, like without a conscience. Then without a conscience, there is no morality. Who cares about rocks? They blow up every day. Thank you, guys. And I hope to see you soon in another episode and another topic.
Sounds
okay. Good. Yeah, just remember that we are stardust.
Yeah, stardust. Yes. The magical universe. Okay. Have a good day.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.